So both the Xbox Series X and PS5 launched this week. I got my Series X on launch day. My PS5, on the other hand, not exactly here yet. No big deal. Doesn't bother me looking at my stack of games I've got for it sitting here all sealed that I can't play. Not an issue at all. But since the Series X is the one I've actually been able to play, I want to discuss today my very conflicting feelings about this system as things stand right now. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I think the system itself is fantastic. And Microsoft is doing so many pro-consumer moves that Sony and Nintendo both aren't doing. But when it comes down to the single most important thing when it comes to selling consoles, the games, they're still struggling significantly when you look at this system's launch. So that's what I want to talk about. My thoughts on both the system itself, but also what I feel is this far less than stellar rollout it's had. Both in terms of just console launches in general, and definitely from at least what I'm seeing in comparison to the PS5. Because it's like, you'd think with how poorly they did with the Xbox One, that they would have really just knocked it out of the park with the Series X, hit the ground running, not want to leave anything to chance, and it's like, these are definitely decisions they made. Right off the bat, when I opened up the box this thing shipped in, I gotta say, it was pretty funny and sad that the first thing I was greeted with on the back of the Series X box was this big shot of Master Chief. Obviously, Halo Infinite was supposed to be the big launch game for this console, harkening back to the original Xbox launching with the original Halo. But as most of you probably know, that game has been delayed until sometime next year, I guess. So it's like right away you open the box and are reminded about how the big game that you were supposed to be playing with this thing day one is nowhere in sight. And its absence is noticeable, but that's something I'll get into a bit later. The packaging for this system is nice on the inside. Your mini fridge comes wrapped like a little present with this slip cover that says, "Power your dreams." The console itself, unsurprisingly, is probably one of the most boring-looking consoles ever made. Yeah, it's just like a solid brick. The controller, similarly, pretty much the same as the Xbox One. There's stuff like the grips and D-pad that I think have been upgraded from like the base pack-in controllers with the Xbox One consoles. But you've been able to buy controllers like this for the Xbox One for a long time. Again, nothing really stellar about the physical contents, but let's be honest, who really cares about like the aesthetics of a console? The important stuff is how it runs and what are the games. And in that regard, this feels, in my opinion, like one of the most lackluster launches in gaming history. Microsoft took a very bold strategy here in releasing a new console with virtually no exclusives, no major ones at least. And I'm not just talking about specifically Xbox exclusives. We know that they put most of their stuff on PC as well. I'm just talking about, in general, there's nothing new here from the big first-party devs on day one, and it's just, that's crazy to me. Like I said, Halo was supposed to be that big game, and yeah, not having it here on launch really hurts that feeling to me. I tweeted a picture when my Xbox Series X came in, jokingly like, here's my new Xbox with all the amazing launch games I bought for it, and it's just, there's nothing else there. And it's true, this is the first time I bought a new video game system with no new games for it. Now, I did end up eventually picking up Assassin's Creed Valhalla on it. Still something that's available on pretty much everything. You can play it on Xbox One, PS4, PS5, and the Series X. But yeah, on launch day, to not pick up any new games, it's just crazy. Probably something I'll never do again. Hopefully, I'll never do again. Now, the saving grace here is going to be the upgraded games you can play on the system, combined with all the very pro-consumer moves that Microsoft has been doing with backwards compatibility and Game Pass. If you're sub to Game Pass, you have immediate access to a bunch of titles that have been upgraded specifically for the Series X. I've checked out a bunch of games. Again, I've only had the system for like 2 days, but it is really impressive seeing many of these games in 4K, 60 frames per second. Gears 5, Forza, whichever the newest Forza is, I can't remember the name, but that game, it looks better than real life in many ways. Like, some of these games this gen, you're going to be looking out your window and go, wow, these graphics suck outside. Better off just staying inside playing games all day. Destiny 2 finally runs at 60 FPS on a console, something those who play it have been wanting for an extremely long time. You've got, of course, that backwards compatibility, so you can put in a lot of your older games that are also, many of which are enhanced. I mean, you're playing stuff like Mirror's Edge in 4K with HDR, even Fusion Frenzy, one of the best party games in my opinion ever made. And while many of these games are on Game Pass, you can take your original Xbox and Xbox 360 disc, if the game is supported with backwards compatibility, and play them. Also, that fancy SSD, especially in the newer games, makes it so if you're a noob like me and constantly die in games, you're not going to spend too much time on those loading screens. A lot of good stuff. And I do believe Game Pass is really the main selling point with the Xbox now, and probably will continue to be so going forward. And it's nice, especially for newcomers, if you maybe didn't have a PS4 or an Xbox One last gen, or you want to switch from PS4 to Xbox. It's nice that it's so easy to have instant access to this wide library of games. So I don't want to understate that or act like I'm some kind of Xbox hater, because I'm not. I want everyone to do their best so we can get stiffer competition, which gives us better products. But it's like the idea of having a new console at launch and being like, yeah, you can play all these upgraded versions of the games you've been able to play for a long time, likely have already been playing. It definitely, if you're going into this as a big Xbox guy, it's like you've already played Gears, Forza, the Master Chief Collection. You know, the games that are on Game Pass, the ones you want to play, you've already been playing. This console upgrade to me feels more like if you're a PC person, when you upgrade to like the next generation of graphics card, where it's like there's not going to be any games that you weren't able to play on your PC before that you're able to play now. It's just like now you can play them in ultra settings. Still a good feeling. And I do get, to be clear, that if Halo Infinite would have made it here for launch, it was going to also be on the Xbox One as well. But it's about having a new game, a new experience to play on the new hardware. I would compare it to something like the Nintendo Switch launch. Just because Breath of the Wild was on the Wii U didn't make it any less of a system seller for the Switch. However, if that game wasn't there at all on day one, the Switch probably would have had some issues early on. Now, obviously, with the console launch just happening, both these systems are brand new. Both are currently selling out and are hard to find. That's the case with every new console launch, even with the Wii U. Okay, it was tough to get one early on if you didn't have a pre-order. So Microsoft is going to be able to sell to the enthusiast crowd for a while here, before needing to win over that more casual audience. And I hope they've got some big stuff coming. I can only assume that's the case with all the purchases of different studios they've done. Halo Infinite, we know it's gonna come out someday, but if I was running Microsoft, I'd be looking to announce and reveal some of that stuff as soon as possible. Everybody knows the true test comes when you have to attract the wider audience. Again, the day one selling to enthusiasts is easy for pretty much every console. And personally, as things stand right now, the way I see things going after the holidays, the PS5, I think, will continue to fly off the shelf because it's got a big exclusive launch lineup, and it's already detailed some games that are coming, in the first quarter of 2021. And I see the Series X starting to trail off and heading into the position they were in for this past generation. The PS5 just looks so much more enticing, but this is something they could change swiftly. I mean, how quickly does this conversation change if, say, an Elder Scrolls 6 trailer drops, and, during the trailer at the end, whatever, it goes, Xbox console exclusive. Boom, the whole conversation has changed, but they really need to do something here because that is, in my opinion, what hurt them so much this last generation, just next to no hype in terms of their exclusives. And even if you have the most powerful console on the market, which the PS5 and the Xbox are already pretty close in those terms, if the competition has all the exciting exclusives, that's what people are going to go with. And again, I love Game Pass and I get all the backwards compatibility stuff, very pro-consumer, I like it. But at the end of the day, and I've said this in the past, people are buying new consoles to play new games on them. And if we were coming off of just about any other console besides the Xbox One, I wouldn't have as much of an issue here. Plenty of consoles have weaker launches. I mean, this is particularly bad not having, again, any big new first-party titles. But it's like if the Xbox One had a robust first-party lineup, I wouldn't have as much of a problem here, but it's like the signal you're sending to people coming off against such a weak last generation, and then you go into this one with pretty much nothing. It's not great. And there's no reason the Series X shouldn't succeed. Again, like I've said, it's a more than capable console. All these pro-consumer things you have going on with the Game Pass and the backwards compatibility. The only thing that's going to hold this system back, keep it from being a major success this generation, is Microsoft themselves. Anyway, with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on the Xbox Series X launch in the comments. Did you find it to be weak? How did you think it compared to the PS5s? Like, you know, especially when you look on social media and that, where do you think the excitement lies right now? And if you're someone who's in the market for a new console but haven't decided which one you want to buy yet, what would the Series X have to do to win you over from the PS5? Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this discussion on the Xbox Series X launch. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. And if you want to keep the conversation going, hit me up on Twitter @JohnnyZakari. Enjoy my Discord, ChiGuy and Friends. Link to both in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching.